Alright, what is going on YouTube? Nili versus Liereyy in a Collection Cup. This is the round of 16s, I believe. Nili, the massive underdog in this set, trying to pull an upset against Liereyy over here. We're going into game number 1, Arabia. I brought the draft up for a couple of moments at the starting screen so you could take a look at it. In case you're watching this on YouTube, just go and rewind it if you need a little bit more time, but we'll have time in between the games to evaluate this. Liereyy is going to open with Vikings on the right side. In green, and to the north, we're going to have Nili as an interesting Malians pick in red. Now, Nili had both Malians and Persians remaining, and one of those have to go for Nomad. Plus, he lost Chinese to the civilization snipe of the opponent. I assume that the original idea for Nili was using Chinese on Arabia, because if there is any civilization that can match the economical power of Vikings, that's going to be Chinese. So, the thing is that with Chinese gone, Nili has to settle with Malians, which is definitely a tier lower, at least, when it comes to quality compared to Chinese. Not necessarily an ideal situation for Nili here, especially because, as I said, you really need that economical power to match up with Vikings, otherwise you're gonna be in a massive trouble. Anyways, we're gonna have free on wood for Nili over here already. With Malians, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going for scouts exclusively, because guess what? You can actually go for the cheaper buildings and still go archers. So it could be a fast men-at-arms archers, could be a fast straight archers as well from Nili. One of the things that Malians give you in this setup, in fact, is the ability to go for a very diverse set of units. Something that very few civilizations are capable of doing. Chinese is actually one of them. So Chinese can do nice archer builds, Chinese can do nice scouts builds, and Malians are very similar to that in some regard. Obviously, the economy is much weaker. Now, Lily actually had some trouble pushing in some deer here, but eventually he's going to be able to do so. So let's look at the maps over here. Nili's got a fairly well defendable map. Easy Wolof here on the right side, relatively easy Wolof in the middle, and left side is a little more exposed, but definitely defendable for Nili. He's got a nice gold mine, backwood line over here in case of emergency, and the stone mine as well. This is a very nice base for our German player over here. Whereas on the other side, we're gonna have Liereyy as Vikings in green. I think we're a couple of seconds behind because... nope, we're actually live. So we're all good. But they started like half a minute before I jumped into the lobby, so that's why I thought that we're behind, but apparently not. Liereyy pushed in one deer at the beginning, and looking at his map, it's technically just as good as Nili's one. If he was like this, he would have this gold safe and this stone safe. Berries are not so nice, but overall his base is fairly well defendable. Easy Wolof in the middle, relatively easy Wolof over here as well. Nothing really problematic, I would say, for Liereyy here. In fact, though, he's going for some very small walls, if any. Going for the early barracks over here with what is probably going to end up being a men-at-arms opening. That's a smart thing from Liereyy. I really like the men-at-arms opening with Vikings, because Malians can do three things here. Go straight scouts, go men-at-arms, or go straight archers. If Nili does either of the first two, so goes for scouts or goes for his own men-at-arms, Vikings will have an advantage, because Viking men-at-arms are better in quality, because they have higher HP. And if it's scouts from Nili, then Viking infantry can still take a reasonable engagement. Indeed, 2 being sent to gold with a barracks timing like this is going to be a men-at-arms opening from our green player. And it very much seems like Nili might change his mind because he's... oh, he didn't see the barracks. Liereyy clearly sees the barracks, so he knows exactly that Nili is going men-at-arms. Meanwhile, for Nili, he is still missing the information on the barracks, and that is extremely valuable information missing for Nili. He's really unlucky. I don't think that Nili was expecting a barracks over here, so that's why he's not scouting in deeper detail. But that information missing means that he probably doesn't know that men-at-arms are coming his way. He might suspect it based on the 2 villagers added to gold, but I don't think that he has a 100% confirmation on the men-at-arms play just yet. Whereas for Liereyy, he knows exactly what's coming his way. This mining camp here is actually pretty bad. So it's not an easy place to place mining camp at. Probably your most ideal spot would be on the other side, honestly. But the bigger thing for Nili is making sure that no units actually hit this part of his base, because if that happens, he's gonna be half dead. And here come the militias. And on the other side, these are not even militias, we can just call them Nilitias. Alright, feudal age timings are pretty close over here, as that is where Malians will start to struggle. Because once you reach feudal age, the Vikings will get their extra HP, and that just gets better when you get the Men-at-Arms upgrade. So the thing is that when you are Malians versus Vikings, ideally you want to take this fight in Dark Age. Obviously that wasn't an opportunity here, but still, the concept is that you want to avoid letting your opponent get the extra health in feudal, and it looks like Liereyy is actually gonna cancel the Men-at-Arms upgrade. Interesting. So he feels like he doesn't really want to fight this, because even if he has the extra HP, which he will, he would probably lose the majority of the HP on those Men-at-Arms, and he would be like, okay, I have 3 Men-at-Arms, each of them has 7 HP. So those wouldn't really be able to do much. Instead, he's going to invest those resources in early fletching, probably, because one thing is sure, right now he's just distracting Nili's Men-at-Arms, and he's already going for archers. Remember that against Vikings you have to be the one proactive, because otherwise Vikings will just outboom you. I don't like that Nili is chasing these guys all around the map, because at this point, those Men-at-Arms would be much more useful moving up, and being sort of an arrow sponge or meat shield in front of those other archers coming from Nili. Nili went for a double range opening, which is partially aided by the fact that he is Malian, so he can actually afford to go for fast double ranges, but you see that he's only 3 on gold, so he can't actually afford consistent production, and this is a problem for him. This is a serious problem. First of all, his Men-at-Arms are absolutely out of position, and he's not walled, and he doesn't actually have the gold to produce on double ranges. This is a miscalculated build here from Nili. Something is wrong with this. He's very heavy on food already, so I assume that he wants to make sure he doesn't get beaten to Castle Age very badly, but still, this is a massive problem, and 2 archers could wreak havoc very, very easily here, because there's a scout supporting as well. Nili is scouting the base of his opponent, and it looks like now Nili will send the Men-at-Arms towards Liereyy, but as I said before, if Liereyy finds a way to hit this part of Nili's eco, that's a disaster for Nili, who tries a quick wall here. On the other hand, if Nili grabs a couple of skirmishers, he could isolate 2 archers here pretty easily, and that could be a nice value to pick off. Added to the fact that Liereyy is going to have a tile hole here, probably, and the Men-at-Arms could definitely deliver some damage. So there is a damage potential here for Nili, and here they come. Nili will definitely check for a hole here. That's one of the things that people that actually cast a lot of games, regardless of who they are, they will always do, because they have seen even pro players messing it up, and Nili knows. Nili knows exactly that there could be a hole, and that could be a disaster for Liereyy. Because Liereyy has his archers back at home, but I think he's just about to pop them out and send them forward. Liereyy still managed to keep his archers alive here, by the way. So Nili was trying to chase them down. At this point, neither of the players has fletching. Nili just clicked it, but he wasn't looking at his archers, so he's gonna lose them. In exchange, however, he breaks into, or sort of just walks into Lierey's base, to be precise. Liereyy quick-pulled the soldier, so that's not gonna die, and now the archers are coming back, so the Men-at-Arms won't be doing much here. They will just basically force Liereyy to defend, which is already a decent situation for Nili, because at least he's not the one getting attacked, but obviously it would be better for Nili if he could actually actively push the base of his opponent, and I guess the Men-at-Arms would just try to pick off one villager. It's not gonna happen, or at least not over here. Still, Liereyy is without fletching, which means that those Men-at-Arms are pretty tanky. These are Malian Men-at-Arms with 2 pierce armor. So it takes quite a lot of arrow fire from those archers to actually finish them off, and this gives Nili a very good chance to harass those lumberjacks. Truth being told, however, the Viking eco is already kicking in. You have Castle Age soon on the way for Liereyy here. Nili is not really close in this one. The scout goes down for Liereyy, and it's going to be a mixture of archers and skirms for Nili. I think Nili will have to play a skirmisher heavy game here, and he could find the weak wheel. That's a nice anticipation from Nili. As I said at the beginning of the set, Nili is definitely the massive underdog, but for him, the biggest accomplishment would be to play a competitive set where he's playing well, and such small moves are definitely good. So, I really think that these are the little things that he has to use in the future to become an even better player than he is right now. So, Nili is not playing bad here. In fact, he's the only player with a villager kill. The problem is he's up against Vikings Eco. And if you look at the TC idle times, Nili had to idle quite a bit to go up, which is obviously far from ideal. But like worker efficiency, KD, it's all even. The problem is that he's up against an absolutely overpowered Vikings Eco. And this is why having Chinese would have been super valuable. Because Chinese would have been able to more or less match the economical power of Vikings. Now, I like what Nili is doing. Second layer to each wall section is actually really valuable here. And the reason why is because he probably knows Liereyy is gonna be up to Castle Age faster. Which means that Liereyy will try to push with crossbows. Nili needs either stone walls or just a second layer of walls, and that's gonna buy some time for Nili to get to Castle Age himself, go for elite skirms, and if he goes for elite skirms, Vikings will be a lot more one-dimensional, and that's something to consider. Liereyy actually opened up the walls for a moment, and Nili almost jumped on it, but nope, it's gonna be defensive siege workshop and archer counterattack. This is the problem for Nili. That gate could be his demise here. The timing will be perfect for Liereyy arriving on the wood line. And I think Nili sort of lost track of those archers for a moment. Look at this. This is very smart from our green player here. He waited until crossbowman before he shows them, so that he can actually get the maximum damage output. Takes down one wheel, damages another. But as I said for Nili, the key thing is holding this one off until he gets Castle Age and the lead skirm, potentially defensive mangonels. Even then, it's going to be an uphill's battle, because Vikings will probably try to beat you to Imperial, but the first step for Nili is somehow surviving until Castle Age. And remember, he's up against Liereyy, and Archer Micro is always a tough thing when you're up against Liereyy, so Nili might need fast ballistics, and that's exactly what he's going for. He knows exactly that he needs fast ballistics, probably even elite skirm if he can actually squeeze it in. It's gonna be ballistics first, but eventually could turn into elite skirm. Right now, he does have +1 defense, no defense upgrade for Liereyy. Right now, Liereyy is playing 1 TC, as multiple mangonels are coming out. Eventually, he's gonna send them forward, most likely. Liereyy takes the hill, and here comes the dance of archers, something that Liereyy is much, much better at. So, I am really not confident in Nili taking this fight up hills against potentially one of the best, if not the best, micro players ever. That is not a fight that you want to take. I like the siege workshop though. It protects the back of the wood line, it's on a hill, so it's a nice siege workshop for Nili if he can get it up. Militia's going down here for Liereyy, but that allows him to see where Nili's army is at, and the mangonels are crawling up. So now it's ballistics for Nili, and he's grabbing +2 defense. He's getting close to taking this fight, and with ballistics it's gonna be a little bit easier, but still not ideal entirely. Nili's playing 1 TC as well. Keep in mind that Vikings will also be able to just continue going for crossbows and eventually go arbalests in Imperial, whereas Malians will have to tech switch into something. So even if Nili can somehow match the Imperial Age timing of Vikings, which seems very unlikely, I think that the problem that persists is that Nili will have to make a tech switch to something, and he's now going to start walling this one off. He knows exactly that this is the weak spot of his walls. Mangonels will be coming out here, but I think that Liereyy should just play 1 TC Imp here in this one. Just keep adding arbs or crossbows in this case, and play 1 TC Imp. Malians will not really be able to deal with a fast Imp into Arbalest play here. And Liereyy could just steamroll the base of Nili with a castle drop after. So 1 TC Imp into Arbalest and then castle drop here would be devastating for Nili, I believe. So now it's going to be Mangonel Micro. Liereyy is going to be holding this hill, Nili is going to be chilling on this one, so no one's really going to be able to push or destroy the opponent right now. As I said, the problem is that Vikings' economy is absolutely amazing, which means that all that Liereyy has to do is just sit back and chill. It's somewhat surprising that Nili did not snipe Vikings in retrospective, because Liereyy definitely did snipe Nili's Arabia civilization, Chinese. Surprising that Nili did not go for Vikings. I'll have to check what he sniped at the end. Maybe Nili was like, hey, I don't really have a good chance on Arabia anyways, might as well let him play Vikings. That's something to consider. Maybe Nili didn't think that he's got a serious chance here. It's Arabia, probably Lierey's best map. He sniped Lithuanians? Okay, yeah, that makes sense then. So Lithuanians was probably for Nomad, and that's exactly what I was thinking about. Or yeah, or for there is no 4 lakes. Lithuanians would have been for Nomad. So I assume that what Nili had on his mind is that, okay, Arabia is the strongest civ of Liereyy. I lost, well, he didn't know that he lost Chinese back then, as that's gonna end up being a 1-for-1 trade. Nice value for Liereyy, finishing off Nili's Mangonel with a low HP one of his own. But, oh, Liereyy with the trap, that was beautiful. He was waiting for the crossbows to pop out and get close to the siege workshop, and then he jumped out with the Mangonel trying to get a shot. Wasn't successful, and now Liereyy is going to try to trap this army in here. He will be able to, so Nili's army is sort of trapped in here. That is far from ideal. He has run into a trap. He's going to take an even... Nope, it's not an even trade. It's not even remotely close. Feels dead, man. This game is over. This game is omega over. I mean, Liereyy is going into Imperial, and yeah, Nili knows exactly. Nili knows exactly this is over. But given the civilization matchup, I feel like Nili didn't really have a chance, even if the APM graphs were not looking like the way they are looking. I think that the thing is that Vikings eco versus Malians eco is just massive advantage for Vikings. But I think that Nili at this point was just thinking that, hey, Arabia is the best map for my opponent, most likely. So maybe I'm not even going to bother trying to win it. I'm just going to say, okay, I'm gonna pick a civilization, try my best, but I'm not going to focus seriously on it, and focus on the more specialized maps. So now I am 80% sure that Nili is gonna go for Nomad. Let's go back to the lobby over here. Vikings definitely need some sort of change to make sure that they're not this brutal in economy. The fact that they have wheelbarrow and handcart is absolutely enormous. I think if they get free wheelbarrow but not handcart, that already would help. Because the thing is that with free handcart, they have an insane castle age economy. And that means that they can just beat you to Imperial. Like, it's next to impossible to beat Vikings to Imp. I think Malay might be able to do it, but Malay is not a good Arabia civ, whereas Vikings is. So Liereyy is gonna take a fairly easy victory over here. He was playing better than Nili in this game, I believe, but most of it came from the civilization, not necessarily the actual execution. Obviously, I think execution was also better for Liereyy here, but a massive part of that is Vikings economy. All right, so as you see, here is the draft. I will have to finish off a couple of civilizations, and we are gone with the Vikings, and we're gone with Malians. For Nili, Arabia goes into the hands of Liereyy. So, next up is probably Nomad, or potentially Hideout. Either of those could work for Nili, but I think Nomad is something where he could have more confidence or so. Nomad is probably going to be Persians versus Italians. It's almost guaranteed. So that is going to be Lierey's choice. Interesting that Liereyy sniped Malay. I assume Malay was sniped because Malay is a very, very powerful civilization on Hideout. And it very much seems like Liereyy was trying to get Arabia civilization of Nili gone. so that he's gonna have a massive advantage there, and he wanted to make sure that on hideout, Nili doesn't have a super powerful civ. I like Lierey's draft quite a bit. He still has Mayans available, Franks for Atacama, Mayans for Kilimanjaro most likely. Or no, Tatars is gonna be Kilimanjaro because Kilimanjaro has a lot of elevation. So Atacama is gonna be Franks, Tatars for Kilimanjaro, and I guess it leaves Mayans for hideout, right? Maybe Liereyy watched Nili's last set. I don't know if he did, but indeed, Nili was doing the exact same strategies or exact same civilization selections as he did versus Bhakti or something very similar. So he did the exact same thing, tried to go for Chinese versus Vikings, and maybe I think that could be the thing. If I'm thinking out loud, think about it this way. Burgundians might be a decoy here for Nili. Or at least part of a decoy. Because oftentimes people just end up sniping Burgundians, and that leaves Chinese available for Nili, right? But in this case, Liereyy actually decided to snipe Chinese, and that leaves Nili with a somewhat subpar Arabian civilization. Speaking of Burgundians, by the way, now that Malay are gone, that's probably going to be your hideout civ. I think Atacama is going to be Aztecs for Nili, which is a decent choice, but not necessarily against Franks. It could also be Berbers, but I think that Nili needs to play Aztecs on Atacama and Berbers on Kilimanjaro because Berbers will match up against Tatars there. So we're going back into the game. Welcome to Nomad, a map where RNG and placing your starting town center is extremely important. Liereyy is going to be playing blue this time in the southern part of the map, and this is very valuable for Nili. An excellent start. This is a very good start for Nili. He sees the town center location of his opponent, and there is a bigger deal here. He also found the sheep. So finding sheep is very valuable when it comes to Nomad, as that's going to be a unit that you can use to scout around. Now, his TC is very late though now. Obviously, he's gonna have the Persian dock up, which helps a little bit, and he's got the faster working Persian TC, so he might be able to compensate, but he's gonna have to build it right now, and the two players will be very, very close to each other. But there's a massive difference. Liereyy probably doesn't know that Nili is here. Nili knows exactly. So, the two TC spots are both great for the players. There is one board over here that I think neither of the players know about right now. Yeah, neither of those know about that, as both players have at least one sheep to scout around with. The dock is up for Nili, and indeed, one thing to consider is that Liereyy is going to have 0 expansion space. Nili can always retreat to more resources here, whereas for Liereyy, he's got very, very limited space to work with, and that could be quite troublesome for him overall. Obviously, there's a lot of other variables to consider, but you see that Nili already has a fishing ship out, and that pretty much compensates for the fact that his TC's later. It wasn't the ideal scenario, but it wasn't actually something that was completely horrible for Nili. Is Persian douche make sense, or does that make sense? I don't think it's allowed by the rules. I think that you strictly are not allowed to intentionally place your town center close to your opponent. So, or like close in terms of being able to shoot each other, because that's usually banned in Nomad settings. Lierey's already bringing a boar here, and he's now 2 villagers ahead, so maybe that TC was actually super late for Nili. Is Nili gonna go and try and lame here? Because if you actually lame the huntables and roll in these berries, suddenly Liereyy could have very limited food to work with, and that could be a strategy for Nili. He's definitely scouting Lierey's wood line right now, but if you use one villager to scout, plus you already are down by 2, that's not an ideal start for Nili. He's gonna be able to compensate partially with the faster working TC, as I said, but that only starts kicking in Feudal because they nerfed it. It used to be Dark Age as well, but that was too powerful. I think Nili is looking for a boar. Wait, does Nili see the huntables? Let me switch to his POV. He sees the huntables, and I think he wanted to lure that boar in, but that didn't happen, and he's missing out on the second boar here. Still, Liereyy is almost done with that boar, and after that, he doesn't really have a reliable food income, and I don't think that he knows about the second boar. He does not. So, this is the time of the day where Liereyy is gonna have a bit of a trouble accessing food here. And because of that, he could actually have some idle TC time. Despite the fact that he's ahead by 2 wheels, things could soon change. He only has 2 fishing ships, just now queuing up the third one. Nili also has 2. And as I said, the boar is almost gone. Liereyy is gonna have to sacrifice his herdables, which means that he will have little to no scouting information. This is starting to become better and better for Nili. Because now Liereyy has to commit a villager to scout, but chances are he's just gonna run into Nili's TC here. So if he's not paying attention and Nili does, there is a massive chance that Liereyy will just end up losing a will here to Nili's TC. Let's see, here it goes. Nili jumps into the TC, and Liereyy, he's gonna have to juke around, and now both players are aware of the opponent. It's just Liereyy thinks that he just escaped such a disastrous scenario. Still, Nili is sitting on 2 boars, whereas Liereyy only had 1, and as you see, he just finished consuming it, so he's down to 3 sheep, and that's all for him. Whereas for Nili, as I said, he's got all the freedom in the world to take any of these resources. And these will be super safe as well. So Nili can always fall back a little bit more, whereas Liereyy has very limited space to work with. Liereyy, I think, is just looking for huntables. Liereyy is looking for some sort of food, but I don't think that you can lure this boar in from such a distance with a villager that's already 20 HP. This would be a brutally hard lure for Liereyy. If he pulls it off, it's massive. Is he just gonna sneak this villager around and then maybe drop a tower on Nili's wood line? Like, obviously he needs feudal age for that, but currently he's 4 villagers ahead, or 4 workers ahead compared to Nili, which means that he's probably gonna beat Nili to feudal age here. That's the biggest problem for Nili. He's definitely behind economically by a massive margin, and that mostly comes from the fact that he was delayed with his town center, but Liereyy is pretty much out of food, and this is what I was talking about. Nili brings a will and lames these huntables. Nili is definitely playing for food denial here. Obviously, Liereyy has the fishing eco, but 5 fishing ships won't be able to facilitate consistent will production and feudal age as well, and you see that this is where Nili is going to catch up in terms of economy. Liereyy currently is idling intentionally because he wants to beat Nili to feudal, so that he can actually go for fire galleys. Speaking of fire galleys, Nili actually does not know about Lierey's fishing operation over here. The same can be said of Liereyy, so neither of them know about the other. But as you see, feudal age times will be pretty similar here. But faster working docks will definitely help for Nili. And look at this. Look at all the information Nili is gathering from those sheep. This is why finding early sheep is very valuable on Nomad. Just look at this scouting for Nili. Absolutely beautiful. He's got like 50-60% of the map scouted already in Dark Age on Nomad. That's actually brutal. So, Lierey's economy is mostly fishing eco, and it looks like he wants to play towers because he's sending wheels to stone. I don't think that Nili has spotted that. Nili actually has a sneaky villager coming. In exchange, he wants to sneak a tower on Liereyy. Nili knows exactly that he needs to potentially harass his opponent here and just limit his expansion. This is not something I noticed. Liereyy went for a second dock. So he adapted nicely to the lack of food, and that is why his economy is still ahead. I didn't even notice this fishing operation, but in this case, Lierey's eco is going to be stronger because of this. There's a bunch of other things to look at. So for example, there's a sneaky wheel coming on this side, there's a sneaky wheel on this side, and as things stand, Nili wanted to go for the stone. Liereyy is actually going to quick wall those wheels out there, so these wheels will forever be isolated from Nili's base. This villager is surrounded, this villager is being chased down by Liereyy, and Nili doesn't actually have loom. So the villager fight is not something that Nili can necessarily afford to take, as he's trying to get a defensive tower up now. Fire galleys will be popping out for Nili here. For Liereyy, same thing as well. Oh, this is actually very, very chaotic, and I think Nili may have forgotten about loom. Nope, that's actually not the case. Liereyy comes in with 4 wheels here for what could be a super aggressive tower to deny the gold. And Nili doesn't have gold. This is a problem. This is a serious problem, especially if you actually consider relative masterpieces here. Nili, he gets 2 of his wheels trapped in here. That is far from ideal, I would say. I think Nili still has gotten the worst out of this one. In exchange, he's gonna be able to take down 1 wheel from Liereyy here. Oh, there's so many things happening at the same time, because Nili is actually quick-walling his villager away from the one chasing on the left. He got his villagers trapped here on the right side, managed to kill 1 villager from Liereyy here. In exchange, Liereyy lamed his huntables. And now we're gonna have Fire Galley versus Fire Galley fights, as the 2 players find each other's docks. Keep in mind that Nili always has more resources to expand to, as the villagers will be able to break out here before that stone wall goes up, or nope. Liereyy will just say, sit, and those 2 wheels will forever be trapped in there for Nili. I think the best thing he can do right now is try to take that tower down, then maybe then he can squeeze in a lumber camp there. I'm not sure if that's possible for him. Nili is still able to mine some gold over here, which allows him to go for a couple more fire galleys. And it looks like on the water he is winning, because I don't see Lierey's fire galleys anywhere. Liereyy has 1 fire galley sailing all the way around, which could catch Nili by off guard, but it's going to take forever until it arrives. Big sandwich though, however, as Liereyy is going to surround Nili's fleet, and in a blink of an eye, the tides turn on water as Liereyy takes over. And now it's going to be 4 more wheels being pulled. And that is going to be a tower behind the wood line of Nili. Nili is going to have to react to that, otherwise he's going to lose his wood line and potentially just get completely surrounded here, which is something he definitely wants to avoid. Another tower comes in here, but this is a low HP will, and it very much seems like Liereyy could lose that. Indeed, that was a quite sloppy from Liereyy there, going for a tower with a 2 HP villager. Tower versus tower coming up here as the fire galley from Liereyy now arrives. Fishing ecos are still relatively comparable, but on the water we have 5 fire galleys versus 4, and there's also a demo coming in here for Liereyy. For now it seems like water is gonna be still relatively even, but there's a big difference. Lierey's fishing eco is completely untouched, whereas Nili is constantly forced to run away and, you know, just try to survive. So the fact that Liereyy has 350 food already in the bank is disturbing for Nili. Liereyy also found some berries here, which definitely help, although a mill would definitely be helpful here for him. Tower versus tower goes up as Nili loses 1 villager over here on the wood line. Liereyy is gonna have to evacuate that tower for the time being. Nili needs to be careful not to lose access of his stone mine though, because that's something that Liereyy could go for. Liereyy should anticipate Nili having his stone income coming from this side. So Liereyy might actually go for a tower here. Meanwhile, tower comes in here for Liereyy as well. Counter tower by Nili, but I think even if this tower goes up, it's gonna go down instantly. So indeed, it went up and then it went down immediately. On the waterfront, we do have 6 fire galleys versus 5. Nili is still holding his own fishing economy, but his only food income is fishing, which means that he's not gonna have an amazing... Liereyy getting Masterpiece! This could be huge! This could be huge! This could be a complete game changer! There is so many things happening at the same time that Liereyy, even Liereyy, wasn't able to look at everything, and now that is what we call a masterpiece here. That is 5 wheels down for Liereyy there. I'm not sure if it's enough to swing the battle back in the favor of Nili, but he needs situations like this one to turn things around, because that's exactly how you can swing battles back in your favor. Villager count actually now better for Nili here. Meanwhile, a sneaky lumber camp coming in here for Liereyy with his isolated wheels, and Nili's gonna go for another dock on the left side. So Nili could have some untouched fishing eco here as well. Keep in mind that Nili still has 2 villagers trapped in here, and the best thing, like, seriously, Nili needs to destroy this policide wall and then just make a lumber camp here. Or just try to kill the lady, that also works. A lot of villager fighting happening here. The problem that Nili is still facing is, first of all, his fishing eco is now very exposed. So he's down to 1 fire galley. It came at a price. He pulled the villagers from gold, and because of that he didn't have gold income to keep his fishing eco up alive here against these fire galleys. And the bigger deal is that Liereyy is getting close to Castle Age. And if you look at Lierey's stone count, it very much seems like he could go to Castle and drop a castle here. And that would be the end for Nili, especially with the tower coming up on this food line as well. It's still looking grim for Nili because he doesn't have a consistent food income. Something that's completely untouched. He's trying to establish it right now on the left side, but right now he's got very little food income compared to Liereyy, who is steadily progressing towards Castle Age, especially with the discount on the uptime with Italians. That's just gonna make it even harder for Nili to keep pace with that. And I think first to Castle Age in such a chaotic scenario could win the game. So the tower goes up, Liereyy is gonna drop another tower, which means that Nili no longer has stone access. He's just gonna move to the far left side for some additional stone. Eventually, Nili's gonna have a pretty decent fishing income here on this corner because it's going to be super efficient. Plus, it's going to be relatively untouched. Nili knows about this dock here, so he knows exactly that Liereyy will be pushing him eventually. And that is a mill on the Huntables. You can tell that Nili knows he's in trouble food-wise. So, Liereyy, is he gonna get masterpieced again? Nope, not this time. Liereyy could have actually tried trapping that will over there, but that's not gonna happen. So, Nili, I like that he's not popping out his fire galleys. He's not showing this area to Liereyy. He's just defending. If he moves out to the fire galley, he risks Liereyy noticing that he's around there. And that could be troublesome because Liereyy could send his fire galleys to deal with that. Some more wheels being pulled by Liereyy, and Liereyy is going to have some wood control issues soon. Because that's not a lot. Liereyy is going to out-micro Nili here, so there is one villager dead from our red player. And the good old-fashioned villager fighting coming in. One of those vills is actually pretty low, but Liereyy has done a very, very good job protecting the two low HP vills. And oh my goodness, this is a disaster for Nili so far. Or is it? The tower could easily take down a couple of vills here, and it won't. It won't. One villager goes down for Liereyy, but he could have lost way more. Still, Nili is nowhere close to Castle Age, and Liereyy is almost up. And that's where things are getting real rough for Nili. Because these fishing ships were alive for the most of the time. But that's basically it. They were idle for the majority of the time over here. And as I said, Liereyy will be able to afford the castle drop basically immediately. Liereyy popped some vills with a demo? Where? I didn't even see that. It had to be over here somewhere. There is quite a lot of things happening right now, in case anybody did not notice. And Nili, it looks like he's going for an additional gold mine. On the right? I didn't even see that. Oh yeah, it was here. It was here. I guess we're gonna use the power of Capture to rewind, so I'm not being accused of being a potato streamer. But yeah, if you see the ostrich here, that was close to the Huntables, and oh, that's a disaster. Look at this. It's gonna be majestic. That is 4 vills. Boom, here they go. That is a massive retaliation for those trapped villagers early on. 4 vills is absolutely enormous value at this point. Nili still has the eco lead, but he's nowhere close to Castle Age, as I said. And losing 4 vills like that is not something that he can currently afford. There is one good thing for Nili, and that is space. He has a lot more space to work with than Liereyy. So yeah, he's gonna get castle dropped, which is far from ideal. But he may have a saving grace of being able to retreat somewhere else. Here comes the castle. Nili's gonna try to stop this one with multiple towers. Let's see if this is gonna be a thing. No, not even remotely close. That's a GG. That's a GG there. Or is it? Yeah, it should be. It should be a GG here. Like, it was fairly obvious that Nili can't stop that. Like, I'm not sure what else he could have done, though. Like, seriously speaking, I think in the moment where Liereyy was up to Castle Age and Nili was nowhere close, this game was over, because Liereyy could easily afford a castle, and with that, Liereyy is gonna take game number 2. Here's the deal. This could be a disappointment for Nili because he lost the game, but you can't say this was not a competitive game because it was. Now, Liereyy definitely had a much harder start than Nili did, so less food to work with, and he really capitalized on that nicely. Nili's TC was a little too late to start with, and then probably the fact that he couldn't actually hold this side with the fishing eco is what was troublesome. The economy, or the fishing economy of Liereyy in this corner was completely untouched, so Liereyy never had to run away with his fishing ships, whereas Nili had to. And by the time Nili got his dock up here on the left side and on the north, oh yeah, I didn't even see this. Liereyy actually found Nili's fishing eco, and that's probably one of the reasons that Nili decided that he needs to resign. Obviously, the big reason is the castle, but maybe if he still has a massive fishing eco, he could have actually thought about just complete mass migration and hope for the best, because there's a lot of space for him to fall back to and buy himself some time. Even then, it would have been a very slim chance, but without the fishing economy, it's just impossible. And with that, we are having a 2 games advantage here for Liereyy. Not an enormous surprise, I must say. Not something that is completely unprecedented. There is definitely a skill difference here between the two players. Italians will be a win for Liereyy, and Persians will be a lose for Nili. So 1 game away from getting eliminated in the tournament is Nili. It's very unfortunate for him that he has gotten one of the strongest players in there, but, well, someone has to fight against Liereyy, right? So that is not something that you can completely avoid. And now we're going to hideout. Nili's original hideout civilization could have been Malay, but that's not gonna be an option here because that was sniped already. So Nili is gonna go for Burgundians versus Mayans, a civilization matchup where Burgundians have their opportunities, but it's a tough one. Because if Mayans get to plumed archers, Burgundians will struggle really badly against that. So we're gonna have Mayans for Liereyy. Is he actually intentionally switching colors every game just to piss me off? He played green in the first game, he played blue in the second, he plays yellow now in the third one. Thank God it's not a best of 21, otherwise he would be flipping colors every game. So Liereyy is going to play Mayans in yellow on the left, and on the right side, we're gonna have Burgundians for Nili in red. I could actually switch the color of Liereyy now in Capture Age, but I didn't do it in the previous game. Yeah, I know, Endbrain, I was just about to think about that, but basically, I didn't do it for the second game, and now I think, like, what should I switch it to? Blue, green? Like, Liereyy was green in the first game, blue in Nomad, so I think I'm just gonna stick with yellow, especially because yellow and red is something that we already got used to from Red Bull. This is why it's a so common sight. Oftentimes, you don't see this matchup when you just cast games because the yellow and red are the same color palette, so it's the warm colors. You often see cold color versus warm color. You always see that in ranked games, but you see that in the majority of the cases in tournament games as well. Yellow and red is something that was introduced by Red Bull. So, we'll have Mayans versus Burgundians. Burgundian skirmishers are absolutely awful, so here's the deal. If there's plumed archers, Nili is gonna have a tough time against that. But before that, it's definitely workable for Burgundians. They have very, very good cavalry play, and if Mayans want to go eagles, then the Mayans will struggle against that. So I could see something like an aggressive castle age from Nili with knights and elite skirms could actually work out to an extent. We'll see if that's going to be a thing. For Liereyy, on the other hand, I think fast castle straight plumed archers might actually make quite a lot of sense for him. Looking at the relic spots, those seem to favor Liereyy. 1, 2, 3 relics close to his base, which is very important against Burgundians that also get a bigger bonus from relics than other civilizations do. Nili has 1 relic close to his base and 1 sort of in the middle of nowhere between the 2 players. So, for now, Nili is probably going to play eco-heavy early game, so he will grab probably Double Bit Axe and then Horse Color in Dark Age. and still play a fast castle after, but that's gonna be a 26-27 villager fast castle because he needs to squeeze in the upgrades. He pushed in all of his deer from the outside. Liereyy is apparently done deer pushing. He's going to be scouting the edge of the map in this one. So, soon Nili should be able to afford the Bidax. What Nili can hope for is that his economy is gonna be light years ahead compared to Lierey's eco, because Burgundians have a crazy economy with the 1 age earlier eco upgrades plus the discount eco upgrades. The combination of the two makes them very, very powerful economically. So powerful, in fact, that I think that Burgundians may have been a better choice for Arabia, to be honest. I mean, I understand that Malians or whatever would have been left for this map, if he doesn't use Burgundians here, could have been a little bit troublesome, but Burgundians could have been a solution to the Vikings problem on Arabia as well. Anyways, he needs to grab double Bidax now, though, because otherwise he's sort of surrendering some of his bonuses. But Horse Color is something he can wait for until he wants to drop some farms, which is going to happen soon. Or Nili is doing something cheesy here. He didn't even get the eco upgrades. He's going for what is basically a 20 pop scouts build. Interesting idea. In this case, what's probably going to happen is that he wants to boom in Feudal Age. He will get the eco upgrades while he's going up to Feudal. But instead of going for a fast castle play, he's probably afraid of a potential towers play from Liereyy. Remember, against Bakhti, he got towered on this map. So instead of a fast castle, he's probably going for fast feudal into boom. And with Burgundians, that could also make more sense, because if you think about it, as Nili actually gets a cow from Liereyy here, close to the walls, so he can actually do a bit of a scouting inside Lierey's base. So the thing is that this might actually be even more powerful economically, and it's also safer against the potential towering. Mayans are quite unlikely to tower, but you never know. So, looking at Liereyy, he is going for what is a standard fast castle. It looks like he's not gonna add villagers on stone immediately, so it's not going to be straight plumed archers by any means. Now, Nili, actually, I like this spot for that cow, because that's not a spot where Liereyy can see it. Okay, he can see it. But the idea from Nili is that he wants to hide this cow in a spot where Liereyy can't see it, because this way Liereyy might forget about that one cow for some time. It's not a big deal, but it's a bit of an advantage that Nili could grab for himself. And indeed, this is why Nili went for fast feudal, so that he can get Boso and heavy plow at the same time. That is going to be an absolutely enormous eco power that Nili possesses. Still, Liereyy is gonna bring the eagle back, so he will have that cow back as well. And Liereyy is playing good old-fashioned 24 Vils fast castle. That's actually pretty fast with Mayans, especially considering that you have to go for loom, something that you normally skip when you're playing fast castle, which means you have to gather a little bit more gold. In exchange, you have longer lasting resources, which definitely helps in a fast castle build. A barracks for Liereyy, which means he's gonna age up with range and blacksmith. Probably go for a couple of archers to secure relics, and just add at least one more TC, but probably two. Meanwhile, on the other side, Nili is just booming here. Oh boy, he needs to fix that wood line, otherwise it's gonna be quite troublesome. So, as things stand, Nili is gonna go for a barracks, which means he will probably pop out a couple of scouts. Liereyy, market blacksmith, that's interesting. He went for a barracks. This might be a decoy here, because if he plays an archer range over here, Nili could prepare. But there is no point making a barracks here unless you specifically want to go for an archer range as your second building in feudal. Like, obviously you could actually pop out a spearman, but I would think that you just want to go for range and blacksmith if you already went for barracks, not a market blacksmith. And it looks like Lierey's gonna pop out a couple of eagles. So it's gonna be eagles versus scouts, and that's not something that really favors Nili, because Castle Age eagles will beat scouts anytime now. And Nili cannot even go for bloodlines because he is Burgundians. So, he's gonna open up this wall over here, goes for a blacksmith. I kind of like that. You don't really want such an open, long wall over here. So the fact that you can actually lower the amount of palisade walls you have is actually pretty nice. Please compare the resources gathered until now. I think, in terms of overall resources gathered, right now Nili is leading by a small margin. But keep in mind that Boso and Heavy Plow are just now kicking in. In fact, Heavy Plow needs a lot of time to kick in here. So you're only going to see the effect of that in 10 minutes or so. On the other hand, it looks like it's gonna be a siege workshop push by Liereyy. And keep in mind that while Nili obviously is the one that has the better eco upgrades currently, Liereyy could just go for additional town centers and make up for that with more villagers. So I'm not really sure if that's going to be sufficient for Nili over here. Forward siege workshop already coming out. And we are gonna have probably monks as well being added by Liereyy in the foreseeable future. And I don't think that Nili has spotted the forward villas, otherwise he would be tracking them right now. So chances are Nili is completely unaware of that forward siege workshop, and that seems to be the case because if he suspected anything, he would be sending scouts here to see what's going on. But he's scouting the right side. So it very much seems like Liereyy is actually going to get away with this one. Now Nili could go for a monk defense himself, or just go for like double stable knights. Especially if Liereyy is not adding monks immediately, he could easily take down the forward villas and the eagles, probably even the mangonels. So that could actually save the day. Liereyy popping out the mangonel only to shoot his own spearman with it. But the walls are now broken through and Nili suddenly has to scramble for defense. It's not a huge amount of eagles, but it's definitely not ideal when you have to go for this many quick walls. And it very much seemed like Nili was unprepared for this one. So now he's gonna have to pop out a couple of knights. Here comes the monastery from our yellow player, as Nili's going to be losing the first villager over here, the second villager. Nili doesn't even have loom, and Nili couldn't even get loom because he was going up to Castle Age. That's a disaster. That's a disaster for Nili. By the time he gets loom, he's down by 3 vills. Oh my goodness. It was somewhat greedy to go into Castle Age without loom, but he probably wasn't expecting this to happen. Absolute disaster for him, losing 3 vills. He can still probably make up for it with the slightly better eco upgrades, but these are the small things that cannot go wrong for Nili if he wants to have a chance to beat Liereyy. Like, Nili needs every single bit of things to go well for him to have a chance, and so far nothing really went well for him in this game. So we're gonna have the knights probably cleaning up the eagles, but at this point Liereyy is gonna be more than happy with the damage that he has done. Nili is gonna try and trap those over there, but that's basically all that he can accomplish, and eventually with the monks coming in, Liereyy will force Nili to retreat. Idle time in the economy is gonna be crazy. Look at this. Worker efficiency, 75% for Liereyy, 53 for Nili. That's exactly the type of pressure that Liereyy was dreaming about. So even though he's not actively killing anything else now, he's idling a lot from Nili's economy, and that's exactly what he wants. And keep in mind that Mayans will love to be in a scenario when they're 1 TC. So Mayans have a super efficient economy, which means that 1 TC imp is definitely a possibility for Liereyy, who is probably going to take down this stable over here, as Nili is sort of unable to contest that. He also healed up his eagles, which is massive at this point. He didn't even lose a single unit in this game. Just think about it for a moment. Liereyy has killed 3 vills, didn't even lose a single unit. He destroyed the stable, destroyed the barracks. Nili's going for TC number 2 on the outside, but he's already in an awful spot, to be honest. Trying to get a couple of knights going. That's villager number 4 being taken down by the mangonels. And now he's gonna split away with the mangoes. This is an insanely hard hold here for Nili, and I'm really unsure what he could do to stop this. He lost his stone mine, so guard towers aren't really a possibility. In fact, the other stone is also very exposed. I think guard towers could make sense here if he had stone income, but he doesn't. And it looks like the knights are mispositioned. Liereyy is gonna dive in, and that is a massive loss once again there for Nili. He tries to get a ground attack, on the Eagles, but that's gonna be unsuccessful. Liereyy converts the Knights as well. Is he even gonna lose a single unit in this game? He did. 8-1 is the KD, but it doesn't matter. It's an absolute stomp in this game. By far the most one-sided of all. That was an absolute massacre. Like, I think it tells a lot about the game that Liereyy was very close to winning this game without losing a single unit. Nili had some good moments in this one, but as many of us would have expected, he was outclassed by Liereyy here in many, many ways. Unfortunate for him that he got matched up against Liereyy, but as I said, someone has to fight against Liereyy. Liereyy played really well in this one. Nili had his moments, but consistency is something that was sort of lacking. So some moments were great in the Nomad game, for example. Some moments were not so great. And overall, Liereyy was able to carve out victories because Liereyy delivered a much more consistent performance. Especially, like, this game was absolutely stellar from Liereyy. He realized what Nili was doing, going for fast feudal and booming with Burgundians, reacted with a aggressive early Castle Age push, and we have Liereyy marching on to the next round. I'm gonna have to check who he would be up against, because that's the main question. So Liereyy would be up against Vivi or the Max. Either of those players would have a pretty tough time fighting against Liereyy, so he could be he could have an easy way into the semifinals. In the semifinals, potential opponents could be MBL, Taro, Yo, or Dogao. I would assume that the best chance is Yo, so this could end up being a Liereyy versus Yo semifinals as things stand.